Welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, some headlines you just don't like to say, like this one. A systemic collapse headed our way. We've just found the next FTX collapse, and it's here. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.2 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 1.7% this morning. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Bitcoin, 30,500 plus, 1670 and change for Ethereum. Tether market cap, 84.2 billion plus right now, 52 cents for XRP. We are up 1.9 on the 24-hour and up 6.7 on the 7-day. Let's take a look at this. Link to the home for the best private equity in the world, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't believe me, click the link below and get started. Sign up and register and get started. 378,000 registered users, can't be wrong. They're getting ready to cross 300 million in total investment as well, and it is the best private equity opportunity you will find on the planet, bar none. Click the link to my sponsor below. Now, I want you to listen very carefully here. There's an opportunity to help this digital industry grow, and that's through DeFi. And we know that there's a lot lacking in regulation for DeFi. But this gentleman in this video says basically global crypto standards come at the end of 2023 as a recommendation. IOSCO states that DeFi will be regulated at the end of 2023. Listen to what they say.
Securities exchange, with Artex and with Toko, but there's clearly an opportunity in DeFi, and there's an opportunity
to create liquidity, which is actually going to help this industry scale.
It's an opportunity to create liquidity that is going to help this industry scale. No question about it. I've said it multiple times. DeFi, decentralized finance, is the next iteration of finance and banking.
So if we can find a way to bring those two together, I think it's really exciting.
Our work with CPMI to produce recommendations in relation to stable coins, and that came out in July 2022. And at the same time, we produced a roadmap promising to deliver global recommendations in relation to how crypto should be regulated when it comes to securities market, and we promise to deliver that by the end of 2023.
And we'll take it. We're getting close. The clock is winding down. Where you at? Then we have this. 43 billion plus exits Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and BNY Mellon in just 3 months as deposit flight refuses to relent. People are looking for a safe place for their cash. They're looking for high ground, ladies and gentlemen. Larry Fink just said that crypto, gold, and treasury bonds were the flight to quality assets. That's what he said. Then there's this. Careful where you put your money, because we may have just found the next FTX collapse. And systemically, coming from that ultimately, look at this right here. John Deaton says, great thread. Shout out to him. Grayscale will be sold off. Digital Currency Group is done. We are moving to the next era in this space. And I believe that he's correct here. Now, let me see if I have this open. I do. This is Ram Aluwalia Lumeda, says New York Attorney General versus Digital Currency Group, Barry Silbert. Digital Currency Group is an original seed investor in Ripple, mind you. FTX was worse than Madoff, and Digital Currency Group was worse than Enron. This thread will show how, and why the New York Attorney General request will force a sale of Grayscale. Listen to this. The Enron fraud involved the use of off-balance sheet special purpose entities known as SPEs to hide debt and inflate profits. Enron executives engaged in self-dealing transactions. The New York Attorney General alleges that DCG did both of these and more. Through complex financial structures, Enron was able to disguise its true financial state, misleading investors and analysts. DCG did the same later, but took it to another level. While many of Enron's transactions were technically within legal boundaries, the aggregate manipulation of these transactions was the fraud. Enron exploited accounting loopholes and got auditors and bankers to sign off. The difference with the DCG flat out falsified their statements, withheld materials, information, withheld disclosures, and lied to its own staff and customers about its customer health. There were no loopholes with the DCG fraud. It says here the DCG and Genesis knew the latter was insolvent, but both parties sought to portray business as usual and a well-capitalized status. This said from the complaint, instead of disclosing the terms of the promissory note to earn investors, the Genesis entities DCG, Morrow, and Silbert falsely assured counterparties and the public that Genesis Capital was well capitalized and that DCG absorbed the losses from the Genesis entity. Genesis Capital CEO Morrow also tweeted that DCG had assumed certain liabilities of Genesis associated with Three Arrows Capital, leaving Genesis Capital with adequate capital to continue business as usual. Goes on to say here, Genesis concealed disclosure of financials for many months despite requests from customers and Gemini. The CFO refused to join the customer calls. Instead, the front line was providing with talking points to perpetuate the deception. To further deceive earn investors, Genesis Capital concealed and suppressed disclosure of quarterly income and cash flow statements from Gemini from June 30th, 2022, through November 16, 2022. Genesis Capital also omitted explanatory footnotes to its balance sheet because those footnotes would have revealed the promissory note's true nature. Genesis Capital CFO and its finance team avoided joining phone calls with counterparties to conceal Genesis Capital's financial condition. This is horrible. DCG raided the Genesis piggy bank using customer funds to finance itself. How many times are we going to continue to hear this story? DCG directed its subsidiary to refinance its own loans multiple times in dictated terms. This action deepened the Genesis negative equity hole. It says it in the statement there. The NYG AG complaint is civil in nature, but the complaint alleges Barry Silbert and executives broke multiple criminal laws repeatedly. Additionally, Genesis entities DCG, Silbert, and Morrow violated state criminal laws, constituting repeated and persistent illegality in violation of executive law. The New York Attorney General shows through multiple pieces of evidence that Silbert directed the fraud from DCG. Silbert says, we can't allow people inside or out to question Genesis solvency. Look at this. The hole of Genesis equity due to the Three Arrows exposure is something that we will need to fill by June 30th and ask his colleagues to keep that between us. 3 days later, Silbert further explained to DCG personnel, we just can't allow people inside or out question Genesis solvency due to Silbert concerned that this could spark a bank run. Well, of course it could have. Pair that note from DCG CEO with the Genesis CEO saying, if we're able to show our balance sheet after all of that happened and it still looks strong, people will care less about losses. That's not how it works. You show the balance sheet as is. Exactly. Here's more evidence of Barry Silbert directing Genesis. We receiving guidance from Silbert to repaper the $100 million loan with to do with DCG needs us to do. And it says right here, we received guidance from Silbert to repaper the $100 million loan with July 4th maturity from Genesis to DCG by 10 months until May 2023. This is a mess, ladies and gentlemen. And this is all coming systemically from FTX, Three Arrows Capital. They couldn't recover. They've tried to cover up the numbers and the real situation. And now here we are, kicking the can down the road. More people harmed. And they are claiming here, the NYAG, that there are multiple state criminal laws broken, not just civil here. The DCG's head of communication and COO were drafting tweets for Genesis CEO Morrow, and it says here, and advising that he send it off his personal Twitter. 14, on the promissory note, the DCG never assumed a liability, contrary to public statements. The promissory note was material, self-directed, and concealed the truth. It was intended to deceive and mislead. You remember all the infighting between the Winklevoss twins and Silbert back when all of this was being discussed, but nobody really understood really what the shot was. Well, we know now, don't we? DCG started talking about duration mismatch in its November letter to investors in crypto volatility as the cause for its woes. It called the deception out back in March after DCG shareholder letter. And then it goes on here to say Genesis frontline staff and account executives were kept in the dark. Some asked good questions and suspected not all was well. This is a story of bad leadership, as the questions were asked inside of here, right? Oh, this is bad. This is real bad. Now, what do you think old Gary Gensler's going to do with all this information, ladies and gentlemen? Not only did Genesis defraud Gemini and conceal statements when Gemini put in the redemption notice, Genesis threatened bankruptcy. Pause an image being placed in that pickle for a moment. And then here we saw, when I was talked about the infighting that was going on between the two camps. Here's a sample of the human cost. Gemini earned 232,000 investors and $1 billion plus. That excludes Genesis direct creditors. A 73-year-old grandma and her husband, both retired, had her life savings in Earn. Jesus. Said her and her husband were both retired, invested in their life savings over $199,000 in Earn because they believed in Gemini's marketing statements. What the NYAG asks? Prohibit DCG from running a securities and commodities business that forced DCG to spin off Grayscale. DCG would not be able to raise the VC money. DCG would turn into a zombie company with endless fines and settlements. That's why they did what they did, right? They kept it as a front. They kept the connection as a front to Genesis. The NYAG requested that defendants pay damages, restitution, disgorgement of profits. DCG doesn't have the money because of the Widowmaker trade, which is another day for another video. If you want to learn more about it, we might dive into that. But nevertheless, it's all about leverage. They got out leveraged, and they tried to lie to recover. DCG doesn't have the money because of the Widowmaker trade, so it would take years to make creditors whole. DCG is done for, and the DCG fraud exceeded Enron. But Gary Gensler gave FTX a broker-dealer's license. Right? It would take you 30 seconds to figure out what a dumpster fire that company was. He met with him multiple times and still gave him a broker-dealer license. And had he found that fraud of FTX, not awarded the license, halted the progress of the company, this could have been avoided. It's just, it's despicable what we're watching take place. I don't want to get, we got to watch the time here, but listen, I want to show you this. Will the carnage continue? Will we see the systemic collapse of the next FTX dominoes? Shout out to Jimmy Valley for this one. Does Grayscale own DCG? Digital Currency Group is a venture capital company focused on the digital currency market. It is located in Stamford, Connecticut. The company has 5 subsidiaries: CoinDesk, Foundry, Genesis, Grayscale Investments, and Luno. So the answer is, watch out. This isn't over by a long shot. Then I want to take you to this. If you want to understand ISO, this is a thesis paper that came out not long ago here. And shout out to Rohitku, I should say, excuse me, who does amazing work. Making a Ripple XRP cryptocurrencies participating in the ISO payment ecosystem for international transactions by Morgan Welling. Goes in here to say, until recently, ISO payment systems precluded cryptocurrencies from participating. The release of the digital token identifier standard transformed that, allowing cryptocurrencies to be recognized as a legitimate currency under the ISO system. Cryptocurrencies accepted in the ISO payment system will gain the ability to be utilized in international transactions between financial institutions. As a result, ISO recognized cryptocurrencies will achieve higher trading volumes, a historical problem preventing cryptocurrencies from gaining widespread acceptance. Therefore, currencies that participate in the ISO system will emerge from the cryptocurrency bubble victorious, according to Morgan Welling, and I believe it as well, no doubt about it, and we will speculate on that until we know the real answer. That's where we're going to be. But don't forget, the DTCC bought Securrency, and Securrency made it very clear that Ethereum, Stellar, Ripple, and EOS, among other distributed ledgers, will be used to settle digitized, tokenized securities through the DTCC, which is more than $2 quadrillion worth of settlement. And here to speak on that is the head of Securrency right here. Shout out to Mr. Mann for this clip.
And I'm excited because I'm joined by Patrick Campos from Securrency, one of the coolest up-and-coming players in our space. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
Okay, so for everybody who hasn't yet heard of you, can you give us just the quick rundown on what is Securrency?
So that's incredibly difficult because Securrency is a pretty comprehensive platform.
Yes.
But I could summarize it maybe easily with three aspects. One is we have an issuance platform with what we call decentralized investment banking services. It's all the onboarding, issuance tools, as well as the back office token maintenance support. The second part of it is we've got interoperability tools to promote liquidity for security tokens through the use of identity and credentialing services and interoperability. And then the result of that is the third thing, which is our new security token protocol, the CAT20, which stands for Compliance Aware Token, which is what we believe to be the world's first truly interoperable multi-ledger security token protocol.
Okay, that's a huge deal. Huge.
Yes, it is a huge deal. And understanding that Ripple is among the handful of protocols that are mentioned on Securrency's site, it is very exciting to see where all of this will take us. And the reason I'm showing this on the back half of the next FTX collapse, which would be one of the early firms, digital currency group in this space, is to show that this is why I focus on what I believe is utility and the use case utility of certain projects, because it is a scary, scary business to be in this space and to be investing in this space. Make no question about it. And what I'm discussing here and the things that I'm excited about, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee with anything. It's just how I feel over the years. It's not financial advice. We all got to do our due diligence, right? But the reality is, this is why I'm focused as much as I can on utility and use case utility, because that will be, at some point, whichever ones are the winner, the ones that rise from the ashes, no question about it. Now, let's look at this. If you haven't joined us in the Freedom Zone, ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking that you join us today. We're going to talk about a biolab from China found in our own backyard right here in the United States, and you won't believe what was in it. This is the kind of conversation I've been wanting to have for years, but I know that I can't because of censorship on social media platforms. And we'll be doing a video on that very soon as well. So make sure you click the link below. For a very minimal cost, we can stay in contact with one another in case something unexpected happens to any of us on social media and get disconnected. This is the place where we will always be connected. You will get Google ad-free videos in this group, the Freedom Zone. Click the link below, and I'll catch all of you on the next one.